everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategies to Improve Collaboration for Distributed Agile Teams. My name is Casey Marshall, and I'm on the marketing team here at Miro, and today I will be your moderator. Now let's introduce your speaker for today. Matt Mulholland is Miro's Customer Education Manager and has been with the company for over a year and a half. Before Miro, he was actually a longtime user of the product. He's moved on from a customer success role to a focus around building resources to help educate our customers about Miro and beyond. With that, I'll let Matt take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's a privilege to be able to share some tips and insights with you today, and I hope it's going to be valuable. We're going to be covering different topics about how to run Agile ceremonies with your distributed team and how Miro can help with that, and just some general tips as well that we've learned as we talk to our customers, as I've had my role at customer success, been talking to a lot of customers that are doing the same kinds of things. Before we get into the main bit of the content, just going to show a little bit about Miro in general, just in case we have some participants here who don't know what the tool is. We want to give a little bit of context just to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we get into the main gist. So Miro is a visual collaboration tool. It has an infinite whiteboard that you can add sticky notes to and shapes and all of that kind of different assets here. Right now it looks like a presentation, but Miro's not a presentation tool, but you can do presentations inside of it. And if I go over here on the templates, which we'll be talking about a little bit, you can see all of the different things that our customers are already doing inside the tool. So there's UX research and design for like design thinking kind of things, lean and agile management, which is what we're talking about today, diagramming and like root cause analysis kind of stuff with the fishbone diagram. That's a cool one. Brainstorming, project planning, all those kinds of activities that you might do on a physical whiteboard, people are doing inside of Miro and having good success with it. So that's just like a minute explanation of what Miro is. And hopefully if any of you guys, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one bit, which is just the collaboration aspect. It's not just about creating content inside the tool, it's also about collaborating around it. So when you're inside the tool at the same time as other users, sorry for the blurry video here, but you can see what other people are doing in real time. We've got a built-in video chat, or you can use your own chat. There's a timer we'll be talking about a little bit later. But the main thing is that with the collaboration, you can see what people are doing in real time, which is a unique experience. There's not so many tools that that offer that kind of visibility into how what people are doing in that moment. Okay, so now that's the end of what I have to say about Miro in general. For the rest of the webinar, we're going to be talking about 3 Agile ceremonies, and then we're going to highlight features that we've learned that our customers are using in regards to those kinds of ceremonies, in regards to a distributed team. We'll just cover the kind of features and the benefits of those features that are most relevant. We don't want to like feature dump on you guys this session. And then at the very end, we're going to be having a little bonus, a little sneak peek into a new feature, a new tool that's being launched and being added to the marketplace. So stay tuned for that. So for this next section, we're going to run a quick poll, and we just want to start off by saying that we see customers all the time that are struggling with distributed teams, doing Agile. That's why there are whole initiatives around this problem. There's Agile transformation initiatives at large companies. I've run into companies doing what they call remote first, where they design their processes to facilitate remote workers first, because you doing them secondary, it doesn't seem to work for them. But so instead of telling you guys what the main challenges for remote Agile teams are, we wanted to take a quick poll. You should see the poll questions coming up now. And there's 5 options. What are the biggest challenges facing the effectiveness of your remote Agile team? There's 5 options. You can choose all 5, but I ask that you guys only choose like maybe 2. Maybe 3 if you absolutely have to choose another one. So go ahead and take some time to add in your feedback. There's not so many opportunities we get to ask several of our colleagues what they're struggling with. So it's a cool opportunity to learn from each other. Cool, seeing some results coming in now. That's great. I'll give you guys another maybe like 15 or so seconds, and then we'll take a look at the results. Oh, we got something pulling ahead. Okay, looks like the results are calming down now. Another 5 seconds. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and close the poll and share the results. Super interesting. So I was wondering, my curiosity for this was to see how high building trust and team culture was going to be. So it looks like it's second, and collaborating and fighting isolation is the highest, which that's super interesting. I think at bigger companies, inadequate technology like bad mics, bad conference rooms, stuff like that is common. Scheduling in time zones is always a problem, but looks like collaborating and fighting isolation is the highest. If you guys have any other comments about these, maybe we missed an option or something like that, go ahead and type it in the chat. It's interesting to learn from each other, and that can be going on while we go through the rest of the content here. But yeah, very interesting, fighting isolation. Okay, so we're going to be covering 3 ceremonies. We're going to start off with retrospectives, which honestly is one of my favorite activities to do in Miro. I just think it fits like what Miro is so well, because it's sort of, retros aren't really a process. They're like a human conversation that happen on the board, and doing it on maybe a Google Doc or even in a spreadsheet just doesn't communicate what you're trying to do, which is get people to talk, get people to communicate. And I think a visual tool like Miro or any other tool that allows you to do it in a more interactive way is something it's a good fit. So I'm excited to cover this as the first one. There's several features that can help you do retros more effectively. You can integrate with Trello, you can do custom templates, tags, emoji reactions on the stickies, and of course the comment tool. We're going to focus on these 3 and highlight them right now just in terms of retros, the first being the timer. So some of you might not have the timer enabled. In order to do so, you would go to the 3 dots here and you would click on add more apps to get that timer. Okay, that's the 3 dots, and then add more apps. And the timer here, you can set it to maybe like 15, 20 minutes. And of course, the timer is important just because you want to keep people on time, so they're participating and they know that it's a time boxed event. In the customer success team, we do retros every quarter, and of course we use the timer to make sure that people don't lollygag when they're adding their feedback. And of course they can add some content to the stickies, and everyone, just in the same fashion that we saw with that video, everybody can be adding content at the same time. Okay. Now, another way to run it, besides people adding stuff at the same time, is to have one person drive. I know that not everybody can always have access to the tool. Sometimes you want to do it where one person is driving and everybody else is watching via screen share or a projector. All of those ways are fine ways to do it. If you are going to have one person drive, then the bulk mode might be a relevant feature for you. So if I click on the sticky note here, you can go down to the bulk mode and it'll pull up this other screen where I can choose the color of the sticky note that I want to add. And let's say we want to say, okay, we're going to fill in this box here. We want to add in things that went well during the last sprint. So, okay, everybody start shouting out and people say, oh, this went well, and some other thing. And you can really add stickies way faster than just adding them with the sticky note, like the normal sticky tool. And of course, they get added in individually. They're not like connected or anything like that. Okay, there's lots of uses for the bulk mode. I use it all the time, but this is just kind of a nice way to illustrate a specific use case. There is one thing to say about it though. When you're doing something like a retrospective, I think we want as many people to participate as possible. And if you have people who are maybe a little quieter on your team, having people be able to add content on their own might increase the likelihood that they'll actually say something, right? You can send out the retro ahead of time so people can add content on their own. So just like just something to think about, if you have people who are quieter, less likely to speak up on your team, maybe don't use this method to drive, to have one person drive, but give everybody the chance to contribute. And that way you can get as much feedback from the majority of your team. The last feature we want to show for retros is the voting tool. Again, it's not there by default. So if you haven't seen it in your toolbar, it's down here. It'll be right next to the timer. You can enable it by clicking on the 3 dots and going to more apps up here. In this case, for a retrospective, we might use it in order to, and we can choose how many votes people get. We might choose it in order to identify what we want to tackle this next sprint, like what is the most relevant things that we learned from the retro that we want to try to take care of and improve the next sprint. So I chose the area in which they can vote, and I'm going to choose which objects they can vote on. I only want them to vote on sticky notes, and we start now. Everybody who's in the board will be able to participate in the vote. And they can go ahead and choose the sticky notes that they want, that are most relevant for them. Okay, you can wait for the time to end, or you can click done. We're just going to end it really quickly, and it'll go ahead and tally the results. The results are anonymous, and it'll show in descending order. And you can always go back actually to previous voting sessions. So one of the ways you can use the infinite canvas is by having one board with all of your retros, maybe all of your retros for that one quarter. And then you can show the results going back for every single retrospective. And if you have something that, I don't know, maybe some sort of thing that was bad for a long time, several sprints, you can even go back to the voting results and see for how long people have been talking about that. One last thing before we stop talking about retros. So I don't know if you've seen this retro before. I think it's pretty popular, but it's the sailboat retro where you have like things helping the team, things slowing us down, risks, and what's our goal. I think it's a really fun retrospective. And I just put this in here to give kind of a segue to show, like, I drew this, obviously, but you can do pretty fun things in a tool like Miro. You can have people draw funny things. You can put in cat images. You can hide like a little icon, like a gnome in your board, and somebody can find it and win a prize or whatever. Anything that you want in order to increase engagement when you're dealing with remote teams, I think is worth it. So having a retro that's not just 4 squares can be something that you can explore, do team building exercises, that kind of thing. Anyway, that was just a little side note, something a little fun. We can move on to the user story map now. So this is the second ceremony we want to cover. And again, you'll see a lot of the same features that we covered for the retros appear again here. Obviously, they can be used for multiple different ways. But for user story maps in general, and specifically, we want to cover cards. And then we want to talk about how you can kind of fit what you do inside for this user story map into your other tools, into your larger workflow. So we'll talk about Jira, Confluence, and then our sticky recognition tool, which is a pretty cool feature. So let's cover cards next, and then we'll just go cards, Jira, Confluence, sticky net recognition. For user story maps, we kind of have 2 ways that you can do it inside the tool. And this is the main way. You can find this template in the template library. And of course, you can just use sticky notes in order to do that. And sticky notes are fast, they're easy to add, very accessible. you have people who are new to Miro, it's going to be very easy for them to start participating very quickly. The thing about stickies is that if you add a lot of content, right, if I just keyboard smash a little bit, very soon we lose the context of like that high level summary. That and some other things, you might start wanting to look at the card object. So it might be new for some of you, even if you've been using Miro for some time. It's a relatively new object. It has a lot more flexibility than the sticky notes. So we can add a high level summary. And then behind the summary, there's actually a second layer in which we can add a long form description. And if I highlight this, I can bold, underline, italicize it. I can even do bullet points, some more keyboard smashing. And you can see that it's just a little bit more flexible, able to add more information into a single object. Beyond the two layers of information, you can add tags, which we'll be exploring a little bit later. You can add an assignee, and you can even add a due date. So you can see how both of those can work together, right? You might even use both of them. Sticky notes for the majority, and then when something needs a little bit more explanation, you can use the cards. One cool way to use the long form description part is this is where you can put in your user story acceptance criteria. All right, so that's the card object. The card integrates with our user story map framework. It's one of our interactive frameworks, which is kind of the direction that Miro is going in general as a tool. And if I move my cards around, you can see that it's not just a shape, this white box. It knows that it's a user story map. I can add in a new release down here at the bottom and add cards to it. Really cool feature. What's even cooler is that the cards, sticky notes too, but can be converted into Jira cards that are integrated with Jira, that are connected with the information there, and that will update automatically. So you can see here, I've got the information. I can zoom in, zoom out to get different levels of information. But this symbol showing the Jira icon down in the bottom right-hand corner shows that this card is connected with Jira. It also works with the user story map. So when you're doing this inside the tool, right, you're going to have your user stories that you've already identified in your backlog. Go ahead and pull those into Miro. Here's the Jira picker over here on the left. I'm going to grab some user stories, tasks, epics, pull them into the tool. And now you can fill in the parts of the user story that you already have identified in Jira. And then use Miro to fill in the gaps. When you're done, click on the card, and then inside this little toolbar, you can actually convert it into a Jira issue. When I click on that, I can choose the project it's assigned to, the user story, so this is a story, and the name, the description, all of that stuff will automatically be added there, and I can click convert. It's going to go ahead and make that into a Jira issue, which you can see by that icon there. And we can go ahead and add it to our user story map. So the Jira integration is really quite cool, and it's one of our most popular integrations. If you guys haven't checked it out and you're Jira users, I highly recommend you give it a go. It really can change your workflow and add the level of like that collaboration aspect where you actually feel like you're working with people on a user story map. That's where kind of Jira falls short sometimes, that collaboration bit. So you can supplement it with Miro. Once you're done, you might need to document the fact that this user story map exists or what it looks like so that other teams can take a look. That's where the Confluence integration comes in. I didn't embed this board, but I embedded a different board to show you what it looks like in Confluence. Here I am. I've got my Confluence page here, and this is a Miro board that's embedded. This is a quite small one. Don't think that it has to be like a small board. It could be huge. You can embed that whole thing inside Miro, inside Confluence. And you don't need to have a license in Miro in order to view the content here in Confluence. Okay, you can control that. If you want them to be able to edit it, then yeah. Okay, it's a cool feature. both of those integrations, and they're very popular with our customers. They can really help you take this, what would be an isolated task of user story mapping in Miro and integrate it with the rest of your workflow. One final comment on that, if I go back into presentation mode, is the sticky recognition tool. Now, to be honest, when I first joined Miro, I thought that this tool was a gimmick. I was like, this has to be a gimmick. But I'll tell you guys, as a CSM, I dealt with customers where this feature was the majority of their use case. It astonished me. It astonished me, one, that they were so reluctant to get rid of analog sticky notes, but that's besides the point. What really astonished me was how well this feature actually works. So get our mobile app, and this is I created this on some cabinet inside our office, and I created this user story map using sticky notes. I took a picture of it with the mobile app, and it identifies all of these sticky notes on its own as individual objects. No, it does not have text recognition. But the idea is that if you still have physical activities that you're doing with the workers that you're next to, you can take this, put it into Miro, and then your remote employees can integrate it with the digital sticky notes, whatever, and they can continue the activity and feel like they're participating. Much better than emailing them a picture of a whiteboard. I'm sure you agree. But yeah, check it out. You'll be surprised on how well it works. It's a cool feature. Okay. So yeah, so we've gone through 2 ceremonies already. So we're flying through the content. We're going to cover sprint planning as our last ceremony, and then we've got that bonus for you. Get this GIF to play. And sprint planning is one of those things where everybody does it differently, which means that it's a perfect opportunity to talk about custom templates. And you can see that in this GIF, someone on our team created this, and they used the day of the week style. You can also do like day 1, day 2, day 3, anything like that. This template that you see is not one of our pre-built templates in the library. They created this, and if they want to use it over and over again, they'll do it as a custom template, which I'll show you how in just a second. And then we'll talk about tags a little bit. I have some ways that I've seen customers use the tag function with user story maps and deadlines and things like that, which might be interesting. So this is my sprint planning template that I went ahead and created. Some features of it, I have the sprint goal over here. I've added some sticky notes for velocity, capacity, and load, if you guys use those. And I've added a sprint backlog before things get assigned to the individual team members. I'm a huge fan of, if you're doing like team level sprint planning, give people team logos, put them in Miro. If you're doing individual sprint planning, assigning things to individuals, put their picture in there. If we're talking about something as simple, or not as simple, but if we're talking about enabling remote teams, we're really talking about making sure people remember that they're human beings. So as something as simple as adding in somebody's picture to their what's assigned to them can go a long way. That's what I believe anyway. But for this template, if I wanted to use this over and over for every sprint planning session that we would do, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight all of it like this, click on the 3 dots, and then save it as a template. Give it a name, sprint planning, and then save it to either my personal or shared with the team library. So I'll share it with the team, click on save, and it'll go ahead and save that. It's going to appear in my templates library here. Down here is the custom templates shared with the team. There it is. You can even edit custom templates after they've been created, which is unique. All right, so that's how you can save it. Custom templates, that's the way you start making processes out of a tool like Miro, which is inherently free form. There's so many different ways that you can do this. These are just shapes, right? We can change how the shapes look and organized in any way. So saving custom templates starts creating repetitiveness and structure. You can see that I have tags scattered throughout. You can also see that they work on both sticky notes and cards. One thing that I learned from one of our customers is that they struggled with tags because once you zoom out, you lose the information besides the color. And if you're doing something like user story points, you're not going to have a different color for every story point. You know what I mean? So what they started doing is they started doing it more like this, where if it's 13 story points, they have every single one on that card there, going up to 13. So that way, when they zoom out, they can still see that this is a heavy story. It's a heavy task to complete. They didn't actually use it for stories when they did it. They used it for how late something was. So I think every single black tag represented how late, like by 1 week, something was. I thought that was really cool. And so I wanted to share that with you. Obviously, when you want to create a tag, you just go ahead and click on it, add a tag, choose the color, and then click create. It'll go ahead and add to this library, and this library is for this board only. So anywhere else you want to add that tag for the board, you'll be able to find it in that tag library now. All right, that's how tags and the custom templates might apply to sprint planning. You can also see that up here I have in this frame, I called this frame sprint 9. Again, like I said with the retros, use the infinite canvas to your advantage for something like this. So either have, well, no, basically for one board, right, you can have all of your sprint plans for that quarter or that program increment. Or on the other side, you could have one board for that every single aspect of the sprint, right? You do your sprint planning, you do your backlog grooming, you do your tracking of tasks, and then your retro all in one board. Don't do the retro for one sprint in one board. That's my point. Use the infinite canvas feature aspect of Miro to your advantage. Great. So we're just coming up on the 10:30 mark, and we finished the bulk of the content here. We're going to move on to the bonus. So we go back to presentation mode. And the bonus is the Kanban. So you guys saw the user story map interactive framework that I just showed you. What's coming is the next interactive framework. We have 2 already. The 2 that we have is the mind map and the user story map. The mind map, if you haven't seen it, it's a really cool feature. Really cool interactive framework. You should check it out. And now we're adding a 3rd, Kanban. If I go over to my other account, we'll go ahead and take a look. It looks quite similar to the user story map, but it just works a little bit differently. So the same basic core function, right? So I have the cards. These could be integrated with Jira, or they could not, or some other task tracker. Jira is not the only one that we have, or we'll be adding more as well. But you can see here up at the top, I can add a new column, and I can add a new swim lane. So this is team 1, and that's team 2. I can go ahead and change this. I can change the order, change my processes. I can add in a new step to our process right inside Miro. The reason that we're adding this is because people love the fact that Miro is unstructured, but then they have to go to some other tool to get that structure that you of course need for repetitive processes like working in a Kanban. And you can also see that it supports like proper Kanban too, because it counts the number of tasks that are in a single column. But yeah, we've heard our customers request things being faster, being able to automatically move swim lanes like this, being able to group them and move them automatically. And so that's why we're moving in this interactive framework direction, and we hope it'll save a lot of people time, including you. Okay. Awesome. That's your sneak peek. It should be coming out pretty soon. I don't have the exact, like it'll come out this day, but it's soon. So look forward to that.
And I want to first off sincerely thank Matt for taking the time to share the strategies to improve collaboration for distributed Agile teams, and thank all the listeners for taking time out of your day to attend today's webinar. So on behalf of Miro, and thank you so much for everyone to joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everybody.